I walked into the dining room and the smell was still hanging there. It wasn't the smell of death, at least not that sickly sweet kind that invites the flies. It was the scent of roast veal with rosemary, slowly going cold under the light of a crystal chandelier that no one had bothered to switch off. It was 8:15 p.m. at the Bennett residence. 3 chairs pulled out, 3 fine bone china plates served, 3 wine glasses, 2 with an expensive Bordeaux, 1 with grape juice for the kid. But there was no one. Not a scream, not an overturned chair, not a single drop of sauce spilled on the white linen tablecloth. The family had simply evaporated between the grace and the first bite. Welcome to Case 406. The family that disappeared at dinner. I'm the man speaking to you, the guy who sweeps the shadows when the police decide it's too dark to work. The address is one of those mansions on the city hillside where silence costs a fortune and the neighbors are trained to see nothing. The date? A rainy Tuesday in November, the kind that washes the sidewalks but never cleans the city's conscience. The woman who hired me was standing in the corner of the room, hugging her own elbows as if she were freezing, even though the heater was cranked up high. Vivian Hughes, sister of the missing Mrs. Bennett. She had that look of someone who has seen hell but pays a decorator to hide it. The contract was sealed in my office 3 hours earlier, under a cloud of cigarette smoke and the sound of rain hammering against the glass. Vivian didn't cry. Rich folks rarely cry in front of the help or private eyes. She placed a stack of bills on my desk that would cover my rent for 6 months and said, her voice shaking only on the very last syllable, "They didn't run away. Theodore would never leave his cigars behind." Her price covered my curiosity and my insomnia, but it didn't cover the risk. I knew that the moment I saw her eyes. They were the eyes of someone who knew a dirty secret but hoped I'd figure it out on my own so she wouldn't have to say it out loud. My office door doesn't open for virtue. It opens for desperation and for the bill that pays for the cheap whiskey that helps me forget my clients' faces. Back at the crime scene, I ignored the uniformed officer chewing gum in the doorway. The official police, the coppers, had already classified it as voluntary flight due to debt. Lazy. They look at the obvious. I looked at the detail. Mr. Theodore Bennett's napkin was on the seat of his chair, neatly folded. He never even sat down. But his wife's, Emma's, was on the floor, crumpled. And the kid's, little Leo's, was stained with grease. Black industrial grease. There was no garage near the dining room. That wasn't a getaway. That was a brutal interruption of reality. The rule of the game is simple, gentlemen. What you are about to hear is the uncut version, the naked truth that hides under the social varnish of this rotten city. The police work with evidence. I work with human darkness. They look for prints. I look for sin. Pay attention to the shadows. That's where I work, and that's where the Bennett family was swallowed whole. I don't buy the story of the perfect getaway. Nobody leaves a 1982 Bordeaux breathing on the table to run off with just the clothes on their back. The police love bureaucracy, a rubber stamp that says case closed, so they can go home to their wives and pretend the world is safe. I don't have that illusion. In my office, the only thing waiting for me is a bottle of bourbon in the bottom drawer and a stack of unpaid bills. To understand the grift, you have to smell the rot. And that requires more than just coffee and shiny badges. I started digging into Theodore Bennett's life. The man was a pillar of the community, according to the papers. Banker, philanthropist, family man. But every pillar casts a shadow, and Theodore's was long. In his office, I found the first crack in the saintly facade. Behind a generic fox hunting painting, the safe was open. Empty? No. There was a single slip of paper, a warehouse receipt from the harbor, signed by one Santiago Rivera. Rivera. The name felt heavy as lead in the mouth. A loan shark operating out of the docks. A man who solved math problems with knee breakers. That grease stain on little Leo's napkin? It wasn't from a bicycle. It was crane grease, the kind used at the ports. The connection was made. The physical evidence that most would ignore screamed the truth to me. The torn fabric on the dining room curtain wasn't the cat. It was a desperate hand trying to hold on to something while being dragged away. I went to the Castaway bar where Rivera usually dispatched his business. The place smelled of urine, stale beer, and bad decisions. When I asked for Santiago, two wardrobes with likely names like Mason or Ryder tried to invite me to leave via the closed window. The conversation got physical. In noir, violence is a language, and I'm fluent in it when I need to be. After breaking a bottle and perhaps a nose, I got Rivera's attention. He laughed. He laughed with gold teeth and dead eyes. The banker? He thought he could gamble the bank's money at my tables and win, detective. He lost, but I didn't take him. Someone got there first. The psychology of desperation is fascinating and tragic. Theodore wasn't running from Rivera. He was trying to pay Rivera by selling something that wasn't his. Information. He was selling out his own sister, my client, Vivian Hughes. Greed isn't a Greek tragedy. It's a small, dirty worm that eats away the backbone of weak men. I went back to the mansion. The truth hit me like a punch to the gut. The client, the smell of expensive perfume and fear. Vivian wasn't afraid for her sister. She was afraid of what her sister knew. The unmasking of the illusion came when I checked the house security system, disarmed at 7 p.m. Who had the code besides the family? The loving aunt. I confronted Vivian in the living room. The society lady mask fell, revealing the twisted face of self-preservation. Theodore was going to ruin me, she hissed, pouring herself a trembling shot of gin. He was going to talk about the embezzlement at the family firm. I just wanted to scare him. My men, they went too far. You find the truth, but it's never pretty. Usually it leaves you poorer, drunker, and with more enemies. The Bennett family didn't eat dinner that night because they were served as the main course on the table of Vivian's greed. The case closed with the metallic sound of handcuffs, but there was no satisfaction in the click. Vivian Hughes didn't resist when I called the cops. She looked relieved, as if prison were less terrifying than freedom loaded with guilt. I delivered the culprit, but I couldn't bring back the family. The bodies were found miles away, in a common ditch at an abandoned construction site, courtesy of the hired goons, probably former associates of Santiago Rivera doing side jobs. The cold dinner on the table remained as a grotesque monument to the moment time stopped for the Bennetts. Analyzing coldly, the modus operandi was amateur, but the motivation was as old as the world. Cain and Abel dressed in silk suits. Vivian's psychology was classic, wounded narcissism. She rationalized the fratricide as a necessary corporate maneuver. In her mind, Theodore and the innocent Emma, and even little Leo, were just liabilities on the balance sheet that needed to be liquidated. It is the banality of evil, folks. It wasn't passionate hatred, it was cold calculation. A forensic technique of dissecting the soul would show that Vivian was dead inside long before she ordered the kidnapping. What did this case leave behind? Just scars on the city. The mansion goes to auction. Vivian's money goes to lawyers who will try to plead insanity. And me? I'm left with a check that gets cashed tomorrow and the feeling that nothing has changed. The crime is solved, the guilty are jailed, but the city remains sick. The rain keeps falling, washing the blood into the gutters, but never truly cleaning the sidewalk. Telling this story is like lighting a match in a flooded basement. It's quick, loud, reveals the rats in the corners, and the darkness comes back immediately, denser than before. I need that silence for the next move. I need to forget the face of the boy, Leo, and the grease stain on the napkin. That's the price you pay for looking where no one else wants to look. There's a new envelope under my office door. I can see the white corner standing out against the dusty floor. The phone is going to ring any minute. Evil doesn't take vacations, and human stupidity is the most renewable resource in existence. So that this office stays active, and so I can continue to be the only one going down to check the sewers while you sleep soundly, you need to keep the channel running. The truth has operating costs. Subscribe. Share this report. Comment below on which clue you missed. The night is just beginning, and there are enough monsters for all of us. Enough talk. Turn off the light, and close the door on your way out. I have a glass to fill and a memory to drown.